We're going to be looking at how to make an Iman Ghadzi style animation. But before we do that, let's look at the example that we're going to create. This example is a little 3D pop-up with text animation and icons. The great thing is that there's certain presets and effects that Iman uses across all his animations. So once you're done this tutorial, you'll have those effects and presets so you can apply it to anything else that you do. Now, before we hop into recreating this animation, if you're looking to fully edit like Iman Ghadzi, Ali Abdaal, or even videos that I've been creating that's gotten me and my clients millions of views, then sign up on our waitlist to join our program that will cover how to be advanced level editor and animator. We're going to show you the skills needed to be able to work with top level influencers, celebrities, and social brands. The creator economy is just getting started, and people are searching for the best editors to fuel their content engine. I literally get hundreds of DMs a week of people looking for editors. The demand for an advanced social media editor has never been higher. But in order to make 5 to 20K a month editing from your laptop and anywhere in the world, you need the advanced level editing and animation skills in order to edit for top people and brands. My company and even myself had the opportunity to edit videos for top level influencers, celebrities, and brands while earning up to $70,000 a month doing so. So we're going to show you the skills that are needed to edit videos for people like that and the skills needed to acquire these clients. So if you're interested, click the link in the description to join the waitlist. We are only accepting a very small amount of students. We want to make sure everyone who comes through it succeeds. So sign up on the waitlist to be the first to know about the release. Now with that, let's start recreating this animation. Okay, so we're here in After Effects, and currently right now I have a 1920 by 1080 frame here. So we could go ahead and create this first animation that we see from Iman Ghadzi. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is select this rounded rectangle tool in the top left, and then we're gonna make a rectangle, so just like that. From there, the next thing to do, we're gonna change this fill color to more of this blackish gray, more on the black side, just like that. And then for the roundness, we're going to just round out the edges a tad bit more. And then the stroke, we're going to turn that down to roughly about 4. Actually, I think 5 will be a little bit better. Next thing he does is just turn down the opacity of it a little bit. So I'm going to hit T on my keyboard. It's going to pull up the opacity control. I'm just going to turn that down ever so slightly here. After that, we are going to make the human icons. To do that, we're going to go back up to our shape selector. I'm going to choose the ellipse tool. From there, I'm gonna build out the person on the right side. So I'm just gonna hold down shift as I'm dragging to make a circle. And then we're gonna change the circle to have no stroke. Then also change the color to white. From there, we then need to build out the body of the person. So I'm gonna go back up to my ellipse tool, make sure I have that selected. I'm gonna go ahead and make more of an oval shape, if anything, kind of like that. And I'm gonna drag this right here. It's starting to look pretty good. Okay, to cut out the bottom portion of this, I am actually going to pre-compose it and just call it circle bottom. And then I'm gonna select my pen tool, cut this out. So I'm gonna click once, hold down shift, click again, and that's gonna make a straight line. And then we could go ahead and cut that portion out. As you can see, it's cutting out the wrong side. So we need to go into our mask settings on the left, change this from add to subtract. And there we go. The next thing we could do is add a little bit of a fade to it. So I'm gonna go back into the mask path or the mask settings and I'm gonna drag the feather up a little bit. And then I'm just gonna adjust, highlight both of these and drag them both up. I'm gonna turn down the feather just a tad bit. Right around 35 should be good. And there we go, we have our human icon. What we wanna do, make sure everything is kind of merged together here. So I'm gonna highlight the circle bottom and the circle top, right click, pre-compose, and call this person icon. What I'm also going to do before I actually drag them over is I'm going to make sure the anchor point is in the middle, and it'll make it a whole lot easier when we go and animate this. You can also scale this down to right about there, it seems like. And I'm going to duplicate it. And now we're just going to build out where it kind of goes off to the side here. So we're going to put this one behind, and I'm going to duplicate it again. Hold shift to move to the left, and then I'm going to duplicate it one more time. Hold it shift to move to the left. And I'll move it up ever so slightly, duplicate it again, Command D to do that. And I'm gonna move it to the right while holding shift. And then I'm gonna make sure these two are in the back here. And then I'm gonna relabel all of these here. I'm gonna start with the first one, rename it person 1. Okay, since they're now renamed, we are going to go ahead and turn down the opacity of them. So the first one is the one where the opacity is turned down the least. So I'm just going to hit T on my keyboard to pull up opacity. Let's do 97%, see how that looks. For person 2, we are going to change that to 93. And the same exact thing for person 3, we want to add 93. And then person 4, let's turn that down to 89. Person 5, and we could change that to 89 as well. What I'm noticing is that all of these can be a little bit smaller, so I'm going to highlight them, hit S on my keyboard for scale, just kind of scale them all down a little bit. And then what we can do here is then move some of these closer in. And I'm noticing the ones on the left, on the very left here, are actually turned down a little bit more. So I'm going to go back into opacity, really turn that down to match what Iman Ghadzi has. So I'm going to put it at 50% here. I'm going to do the exact same thing for person 4. Hit T on my keyboard, bring up opacity and change it to 50%. And then person 3, let's see, right around 68 is good. So I'm going to do the exact same thing to person 2. And I think that's pretty good. That's good for now. So I'm going to highlight everything here, kind of condense everything so we can see what we're looking at. Obviously, there's still more to add to this, but we're going to get into the text. So for the text, I'm just going to pull up the text tool here at the top left. I'm going to type out 150 and then hit the plus symbol. I'm using the text Europa Grotesque. You could download that for free online if you could find it. Pretty sure I got it for free. I'm actually going to delete the space between the plus and the 50. And then I'm going to scale this up. I'm going to drag it over here. We just want a stroke on it. So what we can do here on the right side on the character tab here, or the character window, we want to swap the fill and stroke. And then what we can do is turn up the stroke here just a little bit. 5 looks pretty good. Next thing is to add that other text below it. I'm going to select the text tool and I'm going to do the exact same thing. It's all in capital letters here. So we want to make sure we're doing that as well. Can I highlight this? So I actually want this to be filled. So I'm just swapping the fill color here and make sure it's white. And then we can scale this down a little bit. Bring this over. Try to get it to fit into what we want here. So one thing I'm noticing is with this text here, the 150 plus, it kind of overlaps the employees, which we want, but we want this to be faded a little bit. So what I'm going to do is make sure I have 150 plus selected on my layers here. I'm going to bring up the pen tool. I'm just going to make a little bit of a cut here. Go and bring up my mask options here on the left. Change this to subtract. Drop down this a little bit more to where we see mask feather. Turn that up a bit, and there we go. A couple things we need to keep on adding to this. I think one thing is that employee can be turned down a little bit, so I'm hitting S on my keyboard to scale it down and try to drag this in the middle here. Next thing to do is add that glow effect that we always see on this. So to do that, I'm going to go over to my effects window here. You'll see effects and preset. I'm going to look up glow, and we want to go to stylize, glow, drag that on. And we'll drag it onto the employee text first. In the glow settings, I'm going to turn down the radius just a tad. Or turn it up actually, turn it up. And turn the intensity down just a tad while turning up the radius a little bit more. And there we go. So the settings we want to use is glow radius 11, glow intensity 0.7, and glow threshold 60%. Now we want to apply this to the rest of our layers here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the glow effect. Since we already have the right settings in it, I'm going to hit Command C on a Mac, or you can go right click, copy, and I'm going to highlight everything here. Just hit Command V to paste that. And now everything's glowing. Still a couple things that we can do. First, you'll notice there's a slight tint in his where the red, green, and blue is separated a little bit. So we want to add that as well. So I'm going to look up glitch in the effects here. You'll see VR digital glitch. We're going to want to drag that on. I'm going to drag it onto the employee's text first. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see what's going on. So what we want to do is keep this master amplitude turned down to about 37. And we want to go into distort the color a little bit, probably right around 72. And then we want to turn down geometry distort all the way to 0, distortion rate down to 0 as well. So now that we have this little bit of a RGB kind of separation here that Iman has, I'm going to turn it back to 50. You don't want to do it too much, otherwise it'll make it too blurry. And I'm going to copy this effect, Command C, and paste it onto all the other layers that we have. Okay, so the next thing we want to add is this little jittery effect. You'll notice that Iman, he uses this effect where the lines on the outside here, or the stroke, will be a little bit jittery to it, but it won't be moving. And then he also adds another like jittery effect to it as well. And I'll show you that once we get into animation. But to get that, you know, distorted line a little bit, we're just going to look up turbulent displace, and I'm going to drop this back onto the employee text here. And obviously it's looking pretty bad right now. So what we want to do is change the amount to 4 for now. We want to change the size to 2. And I'm going to drag up the amount just a little bit until we get that desired look. So you can see as I drag it up here, it's starting to distort that edge. So right around, I think 30 will look good for now. And then we could go ahead, copy this effect and put it onto all of our other layers here. So I'm going to hit Command C on a Mac, highlight all my other layers by just clicking one, holding Shift to highlight, and then hitting Command V. It's going to paste that onto all of our other layers. Cool. So now we have the look down. The next thing to do is getting into animating this. And it's pretty simple. I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of untoggle everything just so I'm working with the background here. Okay, so what's going on here is we have this little bit of a scaling effect and fading in effect for this background thing here that hosts all of our other assets. So to do this, we are going to drop this down, go into transform, unlink the scale here, make sure our playhead's in the beginning, create a keyframe. I'm going to drag this keyframe to the right. Then I'm going to drag this scale all the way down to the left here where it's pretty much to 0. We want to add a little bit more smoothness to it. So what I'm going to do is highlight both of these keyframes. I'm going to right click, keyframe assistant, ease, or easy ease. And then I'm going to go to the graph editor in the top right here on the side, click that, and we could see our graph. And this is just the speed at which something is animating in. So I'm going to click this right keyframe here, and I'm going to drag it all the way to the left. Just like that. So you can see it's ramping up quickly in the beginning, and then it's slowing down as it gets towards the end. So if we watch this back, looks a lot better, a lot smoother. And then what we can do is add some motion blur to it. I'm just gonna toggle motion blur up here in the top right, and then click it right here on our shape layer. Next thing to do is add a little bit of a fade to it. So I'm gonna go over to opacity and create a keyframe. And I'm gonna drag this all the way to the right to match the keyframe of when it's done animating. And then I'm just gonna drag this to 0. So I actually want to kind of have it come in before it's done animating. So I'm dragging this one to the right, or to the left, excuse me. We'll see how that looks. That looks pretty good. Okay, the next thing to do is animate the icons. What we need to do is go to person 1, toggle him on, and person 1 starts off pretty big and then gets smaller, and then the other people kind of just disperse from it. So we're gonna go ahead and create that. First off, we're gonna drag this to the right, and we want it to come in at the right time. So right about pretty much where it's at right now. This is where we want it to come in, and I'm gonna hit S on my keyboard to bring up the scale. So I'm gonna hit a keyframe here. So I'm just gonna drag this keyframe to the right, and I'm gonna make another keyframe here just by increasing the scale of it. If we watch this back, looks all right, a little slow. So I'm gonna drag this to the left, but we wanna add some smoothness to it like we did for the shape layer. So I'm gonna highlight both of these keyframes, right click, keyframe assistant, ease in. And then from there, I'm gonna go to my graph editor and do the exact same thing where I'm dragging the right keyframe to the left. I'm going to drag this to the right a little bit just to slow it down. And there we go. Now that we have that set, we need to have the other icons appear from behind it and moving outwards. So to do that, we're going to take all of our icons here, kind of just drag it to the right for now, so it's aligned with it. And we're just going to start with person number 2. So I'm going to retoggle him. As this guy gets small, so right about here, that's where we want person number 2 appearing from behind him and moving into his position. So I'm going to drag this layer to the right because that's when we want him to appear. I'm going to go to position here by hitting P on my keyboard. I'm going to make a keyframe here, and I'm going to drag this to the right. Then I'm going to take the position here and move it to where it's behind the person, the first person. Okay, so it looks a little slow, obviously. I'm going to move this to the right, but we need to add some smoothness to it. So I'm going to highlight both keyframes, right click, keyframe assistance, easy ease, go over to the graph editor, ease that in a little bit more. That looks a lot better right there. Now we can do this to the person number 3 who's supposed to go to the right. So it's pretty much the same thing. I'm going to drag this layer so they're both appearing at the same time. I'm going to hit P on my keyboard, create a position there, and move it so it's in line with this one that we just did. All we have to do is First off, make sure this is toggled. Okay. So then in the beginning, all we have to do is move them to the center right there. Highlight both keyframes, right click, keyframe assistance, easy ease. Then go over the graph editor, drag this one all the way to the left. Should be good. There we go. So now we have to have the other people appear behind them as well. So to do that, what I'm going to do here is just kind of condense those. Right when these ones start to appear, probably like halfway into their animation, we want our other icons to appear. So I'm going to drag them both to right around here, toggle both of them so we can see them. Hit P for the first one, make a keyframe, and then drag it to the right because that's where I want it to be when it's fully done animating at that point in the timeline. And then I'm going to take the position and move it all the way to the front here. Looks all right. So I'm going to highlight it, right click, easy ease, go to the graph, do what we've been doing, make this to the left. It's a little too quick, so I'm going to drag this way out. One thing I'm noticing here is we wanted the opacity of it to be 0 in the beginning and have it start appearing like mid animation. So to do this, I'm gonna hit T on my keyboard, make a keyframe for opacity, bring that to the beginning, and actually I'm gonna make it 0 at the beginning and see how that looks. And then we had that opacity originally set to 50% when it was done animating, so I'm dragging my playhead out, putting a keyframe for 50% here, and see how that looks. Looks a lot better. Okay. So then we need to do the same exact thing for the other icon here. So to make sure everything's aligned, I'm pulling up the position keyframes on person number 4 as I do person number 5. So I'm going to create a position keyframe for person number 5 right here, drag it to the right to align it with this one so they're coming in at the same time. And then I'm going to bring this to the middle here. Highlight both keyframes, right click, keyframe assistance, easy ease, go to the graph editor, bring this to the left. See how that looks? Looks pretty good. So now we want to do the opacity again. So on person number 4, I'm going to hit T to bring up the opacity keyframes just so we can align it with person number 5. I'm going to hit T as well. Going to make a keyframe at the beginning here. I'm going to drag it to the right to align with the keyframe of person number 4 and then make it 0 in the beginning. And there we go. Person's appearing. The next thing to do is the text. For the text, it's just simply fade in from top to bottom. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. Let's start off with the 150 and bringing that in at the right time. So we want to drag our playhead to right when this needs to come in. So right about here, kind of right before the icon reaches its correct size. We want to bring this in from top and we want it to fade in. To do that, I am going to pull up the drop down here where I can go to the transform tools. I'm going to create a position keyframe right here and I'm going to drag it to the right because that's where I want it to end up. And then I'm just going to move the position up ever so slightly. So if we play that back, it's coming in. We want it to come in obviously much smoother. We're going to be doing what we normally do is right click these 2 keyframes, easy ease, go to the graph and bring this to the left. If we watch this back, little too quick. We want this a lot more smoother, so I'm dragging that right keyframe out to the right a lot. Looks a lot better. We also want this to fade in. So I'm gonna hit the opacity keyframe here. I'm gonna drag this all the way to the right to align with this keyframe on the right here. Keep my playhead at the beginning here and turn this all the way to 0. Playing that back, it looks pretty good. And then we're gonna do the exact same thing for the employees text. So I'm gonna toggle that back on, drag this employees text over to the right. So I'm going to hit the position tool or the P key on my keyboard to pull up the keyframe so we could align it first. I'm going to click the keyframe on my employees text here and I'm going to drag this all the way to the right. And then I'm going to move this one up a tad in the beginning. Highlight both these keyframes, right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease. Go over to the graph editor and turn this or make it all the way to the left. And let's watch it back. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now we just need to get the opacity of it going. So I'm gonna hit the T key on my keyboard on the 150 plus to pull up the opacity keyframes. I'm gonna do the same for the employee layer as well. I'm gonna hit T. And now we can align the keyframes, right? Then I'm gonna hit the opacity keyframe here to create a actual keyframe. And I'll move this all the way to the right to align with this one. Then I'm going to turn the opacity all the way to 0. And we're going to watch it back. Looks pretty good. But as I said before, the employees actually comes in a little bit earlier. So all we need to do is just drag this layer so it's appearing a little bit earlier, and we'll see how that looks. I'm gonna drag a little bit more. Cool, looks good. Now we just need to add a couple more things to this to get that final look that we're going for, to make it look exactly like Iman Ghadzi. The first is that turbulent displaced jitter effect that he has on most of the animations or assets that he brings onto his video. To do that, I'm gonna highlight everything and I'm gonna pre-compose it. And we could call this employee icon animation. To get this jitter effect on it, we're gonna look up turbulent displace. It's already pulled up here, but you just type in turbulent displace, and then we're gonna drag this onto our employee icon animation. Of course, it's gonna look bad here, so what I'm gonna do is change the amount to 4, change the size to 20. We need to do an expression here. To do this, we want to go over to evolution options, and bring that down. And for the random seed, on a Mac, I'm gonna hold down Option and click the keyframe. And as soon as I do that, it's gonna pull up a area for us to type in an expression here. I'm gonna delete the one that's there. I'm gonna type in time, and then I'm gonna click time here so it's set. And then I'm gonna do an asterisk or a star, whatever you wanna call it. And then I'm gonna type in 7 and hit enter, and then click out of it. So what that's gonna do is it's gonna make that jittery effect for us, and we'll watch this back. So as you can see, we're getting that jitter effect that Iman usually has. The next thing to do is add that grain effects that he always puts on it, or the grain overlay. And to do that, I'm gonna pull up this grain overlay. If you're looking for overlays, which you can do, I have a course being released soon where we teach editors to edit like Ali Abdaal, Iman Ghadzi, and even myself, where I've edited many videos that got over millions of views for my social media. As well, these advanced editing skills has allowed me to work with top celebrities and even a billion-dollar celebrity or influencer who I create videos for and edit for. So if you want to learn these skills and learn how to do what I'm doing right now in this tutorial a whole lot faster and be advanced and learn your own unique style at the same time, we'll go ahead and put yourself on the waitlist that we have. We're going to release it very soon. And like I said, I'm going to show you how to do everything that my team does, where these skills have helped me earn $30,000 a month from becoming an advanced editor. We are in the time where editors are on the rise. If you want to work with these top influencers, celebrities, and businesses, or even if you just want to create awesome videos for yourself to grow your social media, now is the time to learn the skills. And I'm going to show you everything that my team does that has allowed us to work with all these top level businesses. Nothing's held back. If you want to be put on the waitlist, follow the link in the description, put your email in, and you'll be on the waitlist. We're only accepting a very small amount of students for this first time, just so that we are providing the most value, and we want to make this course as best as possible. So only a limited amount of people can join, so make sure you are on that waitlist, and you'll be receiving a bunch of assets and everything, just like this grain overlay that we're going to be working with. All right, so I have this grain layer that I'm dragging on here, and like I said, if you want this, be put on the waitlist for the course, and you'll be able to receive something like this and much, much more. But what we're going to do here is scale this down, obviously. We want to make it around the same size as the little background thing here. So I'm going to hit R on my keyboard to rotate it, and we're going to put this at 90 degrees. Scale that down just a tad bit more. And what we can do, since it's a grain effect, we could actually scale this unevenly. It's not going to affect the image too much here. I'm going to turn down the opacity to see what I'm working with here as well. Make sure we're hitting the edges. So now to get rid of this overspill here, what I'm going to do is go up to the pen tool here and just outline this right here. So we are getting rid of this overspill on the edge, because we just want the grain to be on top of the background here. So just outlining it pretty quickly here. Obviously, if you're doing this yourself, you want to take a little bit more time to get it right, but that's pretty good. Next thing to do is add a feather onto this. So we have that feather on it around 50%. Then mask expansion, I'm just going to turn that to a negative a little bit, probably negative 24. I'm going to untoggle this to see what we're working with, and it looks pretty good. The next thing to do is turn the opacity down of the whole entire layer. So I'm just going to bring this to right around probably 13. It's very subtle. We don't want it too much. Could actually turn it up probably to 15 here. It looks pretty good. So we don't actually need this to come up until this is probably animated right here. So I'm just going to move this, delete a little bit, and it should look pretty good. I'm going to turn it up just a slight more. I think it could be up there a little bit. All right, that looks pretty good. The next thing to do is add a little bit of that 3D effect to it. What I'm going to do is highlight both of these and pre-compose it one more time. I'm just going to call it icon animation. And we want to add a little bit of 3D-ness to it. To do that, we want to toggle our 3D layer here. And we're going to go into the drop down, go to transform, and then we're going to go into Y rotation, and we're going to move this into -20, probably -22. That looks pretty good. And then we're just going to scale this down as well, and then go ahead and position it right where we want it. The next thing to do is just play it back and watch our masterpiece that we just created. There we go. That's how Iman Ghadzi is able to create these little icon pop-ups that are on screen.